When it comes to video games, there is no greater mascot than Nintendo's Super Mario. With more than 170 games under his hat, this Italian plumber has become a household name. Like any franchise that has existed for a long time, Super Mario games have evolved since their humble beginnings on the NES. While Super Mario 64 is often credited as the game that changed Mario into what he is today, there was another turning point that happened 6 years earlier. In 1990, Super Mario World introduced gamers to the item stock, and Mario has not been the same since. The item stock was a simple concept. When the player collected a second power-up item, the item stock would save the previous power-up for use later. Upon being hit by an enemy, the item being saved would drop down, allowing the player to regain their lost powers. This item could also be deployed at any time by pressing the select button. This little box had a big impact on two aspects of Mario gameplay. It affected the way players valued power-ups, and it changed the way that levels were experienced. Prior to Super Mario World, the relationship between power-ups and the player was quite different. Earlier games treated power-ups like precious commodities. Mushrooms and fire flowers were few and far between, so players had to play with precision and care if they wanted to keep their benefits for later levels. By allowing the player to carry an extra power-up, the item stock lessened the need to play cautiously. The item stock also affected the relationship between the player, power-ups, and the enemy. Power-ups have been granting additional attacks to players ever since Super Mario Bros. On the NES. These attacks were valuable against enemies and bosses, but since they showed up infrequently, it was difficult to ensure that they would survive all the way to when they were needed. The item stock made it significantly easier to make sure that the power-up lasted to the end. When combined with the ability to replay previous levels and collect power-ups, it was easy to bring a couple of fire flowers or feathers into fights against bosses like Iggy or Larry. The player's relationship between the power-up and the level was also changed thanks to the item stock. For example, in Super Mario Bros. 3, there were certain areas where it was beneficial to use a P-Wing, Frog Suit, or other power-up. Many times, these power-ups were collected from toad houses on the overworld map, which meant that they needed to be activated before starting a level. This setup required the player to go through most of the level without getting hit in order to use that item in that one troublesome area. With Super Mario World, a fire flower or feather could be activated at any time in the level, as long as the player had one in their item stock. The item stock has appeared in only a few select titles since Super Mario World. New Super Mario Bros. And New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Nintendo DS and 3DS both included an item stock, but their console counterparts did not. Most recently, the item stock appeared in Super Mario 3D Land and 3D World for the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U respectively. All of these games continued some of the traditions established in Super Mario World, such as secrets requiring specific power-ups to obtain. And just like their predecessor, players could return to previous levels in order to collect and save power-ups. In a way, Mario Kart Double Dash included an item stock feature. When a player drove through an item block, the character riding on the back of the cart would be the one to hold the item. If the player switched drivers before hitting another block, they'd be able to collect a second power-up. Just like saving a feather for when it was needed, the player could save an item to attack an opponent when the time was right. One of the most enduring changes that the item stock brought was a slight decrease in difficulty. On the most basic level, the item stock allowed the player to take an extra hit from an enemy before losing a life. When Mario made the transition into the third dimension, he was given a large life bar, which was very forgiving for players that were unfamiliar with movement in 3D space. At the same time, two-dimensional Mario games began to change the way in which players took damage. In previous games, the player would revert back to small Mario when hit, regardless of what power-up they had. In games since Super Mario World, a powered-up Mario would revert to Super Mario when hit, and then revert to small Mario if hit again. Being able to take an extra hit meant that enemies were less likely to be a cause of death. Therefore, Mario games since Super Mario World have been a little bit easier. All of this is not to say that Mario games aren't difficult anymore. In many ways, Mario has retained or increased difficulty, especially in level design. Just take a look at Champions Road on Super Mario 3D World, and you'll understand what that means. The item stock was a simple idea that had a big impact on Super Mario games. Its effects on the relationship between player, power-ups, and levels helped transform Mario games into what they are today. But what do you think? Was the item stock an important turning point for Super Mario? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching Game Changers. If you want to see more, go ahead and click on this annotation to be taken to the Game Changers playlist. Remember to subscribe if you liked what you saw. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.